Okay. My name, this is going to be a YouTube video, Autism in Me, Ken Patterson, and I'm an age 70, recently diagnosed autistic Aspergers. Now, the YouTube video will be available to the public with that information that you have in front of you. There will be other stories that pop up, like Rosie's story and some other ones, but Rosie's is by far the best, and so it shows up one of the earliest on having the most hits. It's done with the help of Okali, Autism Speaks, and there are many lenses, but autism turns out to be one of the most helpful lenses. Another helpful lens is, it's attention deficit disorder, but that's usually a category sort of that catches everything, and a lot of people with attention deficit disorder are actually autistics as well. There's another thing that happens, and that is that with every person in probably the world, if you talk to them, you have about 50% of a chance of having an autistic in their extended family. That's hope. The typical story for the autistic is that they become the little professor, then that's at age 3, they probably read. Then they start having problems with their schoolmates at school. They don't have any friends at school. And then their teachers start to say that the kids are more and more of a problem, and maybe they don't belong in school. And so at that point, the usual story is the father can't handle it, he divorces, and all the kids, the woman and the guy, all lose. That is the typical story for the young autistic. Sad, but basically true. My particular differences were, I was in math, and some autistics are in music, are artistics in those areas. They have very special skills in those areas, very high level things. But I had sports. I was strong in sports, and so that gave me acceptance. And I was a strong extrovert, which is, a lot of people don't realize this. Several autistics are strong extroverts. One of them is the Rosie that I had mentioned earlier. Turns out my brother, I think, is now an autistic, and I'm looking at that diagnosis at around age 50 for him, 60 rather, almost. And music was my brother's strength. And he actually was involved in a Duluth Boys chorus, and the saddest moment of his life was when his voice started to crack, because then he could no longer sing in the chorus, the boys chorus. I have another thing which is in the family, which is a characteristic of the family, but it isn't completely independent from autism, but it's something that I learned, and that was that I was a very hard worker, because my dad was a hard worker. I was too hard, actually, but because I was autistic, I took it to great ends. The situation is the discussion of what happens at age 14. Age 14 is a very critical time for the autistic, especially in the U.S. At age 14, the IEP, the Individual Educational Program, it's so important for you to take a lawyer to the IEP and to figure out what questions to deal with and be prepared for at that meeting. The website, which is called aspergersociety.org, is the critical website where you can find the information, and I guarantee you, don't even think about it, just order all the books from the website. It costs around $100, it may be more now, maybe $120 or something like that, but whatever it costs, it is absolutely, spend the money and get it if you have any chance to get it. If you just don't have $100, then don't get it, but believe me, spend it. Turns out that the United States is 40 years behind the British Empire. And the reason is actually that the word Asperger's is generally sort of under the radar, and autistics is over the radar. That's a more formal definition. And what usually happens in the school system is that the teachers will give a year of warning where they are suggesting that possibly the kid is an Asperger's or autistic problem, and then when the opportunity comes, they put it right on the border and let the parents make the decision, ultimately, if they can, to put that person into special schooling or not. So there's both formal and informal ways that at age 14 decisions are made. And the problem is that the autistics, unlike Down syndrome children, don't die young. Autistics die normal ages. I'm 70, hell, I'm working on 90. My dad was in the 90s, my uncle was 90s. These are people who live long and full lives, so if they are tossed on the heap, so to speak, it's tremendous federal costs as well as social costs, because these are the brilliant people. These are the brilliant people. A lot of bad experiences happen that I've learned about from a national course. And the bad experiences are that money is being pulled away, and while you might think that there's a lot of information available for autistics, there really isn't. So the autistics and their caregivers 50 years ago used to be kept under a porch and then left sort of alone. Today, social being what it is, they're being cared for, but they're not being cared for in any kind of a way that is appropriate, that they understand what's going on. There's a website called theproject.org, but I'm really wary of that website because it's great for those who have to use it. But the one thing about that website is it encourages people to list other people, other friends, neighbors, and others who may have autistics or who may be involved in autism in some way, and to list them and connect them with that website. So anybody who is listening to this may be connected to that website and simply not know that they're connected, and perhaps as a result of it have some bad things happen to them. So that's very interesting. The military has a lot of issues to deal with and related to autism and other sorts of things. one thing that happens when somebody comes back from a military situation is they often have violent PTSD. And when that occurs, it can affect the whole family. It can affect the wife, the kids, and all sorts of issues like that. And these persist or can persist for one's entire lifetime unless the baggage is removed. So, examples in the Army, Special Forces, these are people with all kinds of skill sets, but not any longer the ability to operate in a normal society. So these can persist for a lifetime. I'm seeing it can be a problem in a dating website because the people, the wives, may have those terrible things somehow in their lives because of the violence that they experience in the family following the deployment. And a lot of wives have issues relating to childhood when they were, perhaps their fathers came home from the service, or as spouses they have problems. And again, those are lifelong problems for the whole family, extended family. And there's a lot of drinking and addictive behavior that comes about because of the inability to accept the experiences as well. So you've got problem on problem on problem on problem, and unless they are confronted in some way, any of the individuals who experience either directly or indirectly the problems are essentially carrying a tremendous amount of baggage for the rest of their lives. So I've been forced as an autistic to find ways to defend myself and to help myself and others to face their problems. And these often involve, I found certain kinds of tests may work, which is what is the relationship with your God, and if they feel that there is guilt in any behavior beyond what is going on, they essentially should not be on the websites until they get those sorted out, because they'll never remarry or set another relationship because of guilt. There's special kinds of things that happen for people in the Air Force because of the long imprisoning that can come about, or the very fact that they have from a great distance bombed people, and they know that their own families could have been some of those who were bombed, and they either consciously or unconsciously carry that baggage with them. There's people who sometimes the military picks them up because they won't actually drop the bombs, and so they are a danger to the rest of their people for that. And it goes on and on and on. So I'm just giving you a few things